I think we're good.
Yes.
I think we're okay.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Quite.
Motion.
Right.
Cool, we good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what up, everybody? I'm Robbie Landsburg. So I graduated from this program in spring of 2018. I think I was 30 years old when I did that. Was not my first attempt at college. I went to UC Santa Cruz straight out of high school to study computer science. That was like a little too rigid for me. Like I, was doing a lot of psychedelics and wanted to play music and like, I don't know, lost my way a little bit. And so, for my early 20s, I was kind of focused on playing music as my main, kind of path in life. But I knew, I'm not naive. Like I know how difficult it is to make money playing music or doing anything creative, artistic. And so I quickly started taking classes again at Sierra College to try to figure out what I was going to do to support my music habit. And that's when I found graphic design. And it kind of came from the music world where it was I was playing shows and stuff, so I'd have to make posters or promotional stuff on Instagram. And so I was dipping my toes into elements of design, but with no formal training. And my early work is embarrassingly bad. But that kind of lit the spark for me where I realized okay, so design has these elements of computer science that I really love, working with computers and technology to make something that didn't exist before, but it allows me this kind of creative expression, this left side, right side brain stuff, where I'm both merging the logical with the abstract. And so I got my associates at Sierra College and then found this program down here and kind of didn't really know how rad of a program this was and how kind of special we have it here to have such a rigorous and in-depth program at a state school that's accessible to us. We're really privileged to have that. And so in this program, I kind of learned all these principles of design that then I started to realize are applicable to all these other areas of creative expression. And so I don't think you guys have taken too many motion design classes or any yet. So I'm not going to get too in the weeds with program stuff, applications, After Effects and all that stuff, because we would just, spend our whole time getting nowhere. But what I want to talk about is basically how the work that you've done, learning about Gestalts, and I'm assuming you have done that. Yeah, Gestalt principles of similarity and figure ground, all that stuff is actually applicable to all these other things like sound and to motion, and how you can kind of carry this theoretical background that you've developed here and put it into all these other areas, and they're just gonna support and augment each other. So just to quickly go into, let's go to this next slide, something very basic. Figure out where my mouse is. So here I'm just kind of looking at, think of this as did you guys do interval studies early in the program or to get into the program? So these are just kind of representations of that, so we have proximity on the top, 5 things grouped close to each other, one aside from it. And so I've kind of put together just a few little clips of sound that could maybe be paired with this sort of stuff. This is really, really basic stuff, but just to illustrate the point. So let's try this guy first. It's gonna let me play. And hopefully this will come through as well. Oh, did we lose it? Okay. So again, we have like 5 together, 1 separate, right? Moving on to the next one. So we have 5 that are kind of rising, both in pitch, but also in space. And then we have like this different one, this 6th one that is spatially and like temporally, like in time, separate from these. So we're time with that guy. And then one more here, I believe. Trying to remember what I named this file. Nope. Okay, sorry. I'm missing this guy, but basically we can, like, this guy is illustrating, it's supposed to be volume. So bump, 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 bump. Oh, you know, the opacity kind of doing that, and then the tone of the last one being especially loud. So I'm just going to play a few more sounds here. So let's see here. We have similarity. So these are just kind of like arcade noises. And so like these, like in the similarity we hear here, like those 3 noises together, like to me, they feel like, you know, like a character moving like in an Atari game or something like that. And like we naturally, like so much of this stuff that I'm talking about, like kind of theoretically, is just stuff that we just take for granted. Like we just assume this stuff. So it's not like you necessarily have to learn it because you kind of already know it from the you know, cultural experience that we've all had getting to this point. But it's good to be able to like point to these things and name them so we can employ them as tools when we're trying to like communicate a message in our design, right? So I'm just going to play a few videos now. Sorry to those on the Zoom if you can't see these, but let's just do this here. So here we just have like a repeating pattern, right? So this is, you know, like kind of pure balance, right? It's a pattern, but it allows us, and it's like not that interesting, but it allows us to like have this sort of grid to work off of, like, you know, similar to the grids that we design against. This is a grid that we can then interrupt, like intervals that we can interrupt. So if we were to, you know, look at some principles of pattern similarity. So, so we have that different tone that is basically illustrating a different shape, a different color. And like, you know, one other thing I did here is like this shape, this red shape is like slightly rounded because that sound to me sounds slightly rounded. It sounds like a little hollow or something like that. And really sharp angles don't necessarily work for me there. So taking this like one step further. So how we can start kind of interrupting our patterns, but we still have the grid that we're working against, but we're bringing different elements into it. And so again, these are just really, really basic examples of these things, but it's good to get this common language. And then like, let's listen to some crazier sounds, like maybe in music, looking at like figure ground. The only way I could like really maybe understand figure ground or closure in music is like the absence of something. So silence. So here we have, this is just a clip of a song I made. That moment just before the drop, even though there's nothing there, it kind of becomes like the most meaningful part of that song because it's so different than everything else. And so like, you know, it's kind of a figure ground thing where it's like the absence of something becomes the focus. And, you know, that's something throughout a lot of design, like when you're working with something with a lot of elements, which motion design often is finding like those moments where you can do something different than everything else that's happening to bring focus to something. And oftentimes in chaos, that thing is like to pull back, to go like towards minimalism, what have you. So then like, let's listen to some super crazy sound design. So again, it's those moments of like pure chaos that are like offset by those moments of silence. We'll do one more here. And like, I feel like, you know, hearing this stuff, like you guys can all kind of like envision the sort of thing that would be happening to that, or just like maybe have a lot of ideas. And so let us, can we get back to my presentation? I grabbed a bunch of reference for us to like maybe look at some like high watermarks of what I see of like really, really boundary pushing motion and sound design. We can look at some of that stuff, and then I have you know, some exercises and some tools for you guys to talk about. So do you want to share with like the people in Discord that link to my website and that page? Let's see here. Let me get out of this. So it's dreamtoy.xyz. And then there's just this sound in motion link. So I just threw this up beforehand. So the PDF we're looking at is this sound in motion PDF. You can ignore these other assets for the time being. And we're just going to go through some of these inspiration pieces. And these are kind of like a mixture of sound design, graphic design, and 3D design, which I consider, motion design, consider like a kind of the future of this stuff. So this first one is just like a R&D piece by the studio XK Studio, which I absolutely love. Like I think they're truly incredible. And you'll see why. So my internet coming off my phone. Let's also look at their other one. So that was the first. This is basically R&D work where it's just like them flexing on like what they're capable of. They don't have a client that asked them to do that, so they just did it. And of course, this is quite a leap to go from the examples I was showing to this, but all of this stuff is made up of just like these principles that just like build and build and build on each other. And like, yes, they have like entire teams that are working on this sort of stuff, but like, it's not impossible to think that you could break down just like a couple seconds of this and recreate it. So let's look at this guy. Cool. So yeah, those are some insane ones to start with. So let's look at some more motion. So like here's, I think this one's a little more After Effects focused. It's also very, very sleek, complex, but a little more designerly, a little less 3D. Still got 3D in it though.
When 5 engineers launched a company named SAP, their plan was simple. Listen to the customer and equip them to succeed. Empathy first, math second. That's exactly.
So like, just to pause real quick, like, you know, these are compositionally really simple, like moments, you know, and again, dealing with similarity, proximity,
What we're
stuff
still
like that. So, you know, proximity gestalt right here.
Doing today, helping our customers move mountains, change the world, and redefine what's possible. And that's just the beginning. Now we'll usher in the next era of technology. We'll create software that detects, predicts, and responds to each user's individual needs. We'll make it modular, so integration is truly seamless and open for all. And we'll make it available whenever and wherever our customers need it. At SAP, we're developing new ventures and technologies that will improve the world a decade from now. And we're doing it today. Like pioneering new technologies to mine insights from data while protecting the privacy and confidentiality of users. Or unlocking hidden value in global supply chains by eliminating wasted time and excess energy. Or reimagining business processes and removing roadblocks to unleash creativity, collaboration, and completely new levels of growth. Because our customers deserve nothing short of the impossible, we're here to deliver it.
Okay, I'm gonna show one more that's like a little more on the motion to sound design interplay. It's this Google design one. And again, this is 3D, but you don't have to think about the elements necessarily being 3D. Just look at how stuff is moving in relation to like what you're hearing on screen. So a lot of these are done, the sound design is done by a firm called Z-Lig Sound. They're kind of the goat of this stuff. So I don't know, like I'm not making stuff on that level yet, but I like to look at it as something to aspire to. And yeah, like I think the thing to take away is like sound and motion are kind of like, I don't know, to me, they go hand in hand because sound is like quite literally like a vibration. It is motion and it's created by things moving, air waves moving as a result of an action. So we kind of inherently link the two to each other. So there is something nice that like you can use it in when you're designing pieces, even if it's just like, you know, taking a poster that you've already designed and just like making a few things move or spin or scale up on it or something like that. Sound can like allow you to, you know, bring focus or attention to something much like you would if you had a black and white piece and then you had one little bit of red or something like that. You know, it's something that can draw the attention or accentuate something that's happening. And it a lot of times will like do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Like our brain kind of like wants to make things make sense. So it doesn't have to be super elaborate and crazy to add a lot to a motion piece just by adding like a few sound effects to it. So what I've done is I put together just like an asset pack of like 100 sound effects that you guys can download here. I'm hoping that link works for you guys. We can listen through some of them. They're pretty quick, but it's kind of like the most useful ones that I think you know, I often use. So it's like a lot of UI sounding stuff. And let me unzip this guy. Swipes, button pushes, success sounds, error sounds, that kind of stuff. So let me see if I can play it with that. Just play through. Also some ambience. Let me do it in VLC. Sorry, I'm like not much of a laptop person anymore. I built a dope ass PC and now I never use this. Okay. So basic ambience, crickets, nighttime. Nighttime. This drum. Birds. Generic mechanical rhythm. Ding. Oh, I'm on repeat. So all these are like kind of named and labeled according to what they are. Some impacts. Mouse clicks. Ambience. Basic jazz loop. Drums, supports, alert sounds. Here's pleasing notifications. Oh, select sounds. Success. Sci-fi stuff. And of course, swipes, which are great for moving things on the screen and quite heavy. Thumbs, good if things are falling. Stones. Bunch of pops. Yeah, so there's a bunch there. And what I have here is, if we go forward one more page, like I put together a brief. I suppose this is like mostly for people who have already done some motion design. So if you've already worked in After Effects or something like that, I'd recommend you give this a shot. So I built some sound beds that are about 6 to 10 seconds or so. And the brief is basically to take that and to try to like reverse engineer it into something that you're seeing on screen. So we can listen to them. They're pretty short. And you can read the brief or read it. Using one of the 5 sound beds provided, create a motion design piece that visually complements what we're hearing. Listen to each and select one that speaks to you. It may help to close your eyes to envision what each sound evokes, be it changes in position, size, color, texture, or effect. This is an exercise in reverse engineering motion from sound, not usually the order in which these things are done. But I find it to be useful in familiarizing yourself with the interplay of sound and motion. Sound is quite literally movement, vibration that creates a wave through a medium. Movement or motion creates sound, so therefore we should be able to infer motion from sound. More practically speaking, as motion designers, we are often asked to add motion graphics to a video that already has voiceover or music locked in, and being able to identify the rhythm and accents of speech and music steer us towards creating a more cohesive audiovisual experience. And then, think of those Gestalt principles of design and how they might apply to sound and motion. And so here are these sound beds. So it's just using a bunch of the sounds I provided. And sting. It's cheery. So it's kind of like gentle, like peaceful movements. Feels like a meditation app or something to me. And then just kind of like an ominous drone, which feels like to me, do whatever you, if you choose to do this, do whatever you want with this. But it feels like I don't know, like a poster, just like a moving poster or something like that. So yeah, like that's, a brief you don't have to do if you don't want to do it, but if you do, whether it's when you get into the motion portion of your class, or if you feel competent enough to do it now, like I'd be stoked to see what you do with it and like to give feedback. And I feel like it could be, useful as a portfolio piece. And like, I'm happy to coach or critique, or if there's something you want to know how to do that you don't know how to do, I'm always down to record a tutorial for you. So I also recommend you go through like the rest of these. This website's gonna stay up. So yeah, check out all these other motion design pieces and really look at the studios. Like XK Studio is a great 3D motion studio. This New Yorker Fest, I believe, is done by Buck Design, who are mostly in LA, but they're all over the world. They're like an incredible motion design and animation studio. I think the SAP one, which we watched, was like the kind of corporate-y motion design one, was Ordinary People or Ordinary Folk. I can't remember what they're called, but they're a really next level namely like 2D animation firm. Z-Lig Sound was the Google Design one. I'm not sure who the actual motion people were. Man versus Machine. They're amazing. Also do a lot of 3D. And then I think these guys are, the Airbnb one is the Giant Ant, which is another 2D motion studio. So, okay, moving on. So I kind of wanted to talk about like a bunch of the tools to like accomplish things of this scale. So I listed a bunch of my like workflow tools. I tagged them like whether they're free or paid or subscription. hopefully you can see those icons if you have the PDF open. And I'll kind of talk about each one, what they do. So I think all these are links as well. So you can click them and it'll take you to where to get it. So, okay, this one I started using within the last year. It's basically just like a global library, not dissimilar from like Adobe Bridge or something like that. But I started like cataloging my work, B, like the inspiration that I'm pulling, C, like asset libraries or like icon systems that like you know, I tend to like keep going back to. Like there's certain things in design where it's like I don't need to reinvent the wheel, like what, you know, like a button looks like or something. Like if it's part of a greater whole, like it can be fun to design an icon system, but if that's not the brief, then like there's about 6 billion icon systems out there. So anyway, like I got this program Eagle, and it's basically just allowed me to like keep a log of all my work. So it's not just like scattered across hard drives and whatnot. And like a little goes a long way where it's just like, you know, you make folders. You can have it on like a external hard drive or something like that. So you can move between machines and like always have your reference that you want to pull or whatever it may be. And I'm pretty sure like it supports like just about every file type. So it's not just images, like you can have vectors in here, you can have sound, you can have video, you can have YouTube links. So if you want to like build a library of tutorials on a certain concept or something like that, it's really modular. I think it's paid, but I do know that there is a like at least a trial. Like it's pretty cheap too. It's not like, I don't know. I'm a big fan of programs that don't make you pay a subscription, like just like one time and you own it for the rest of your life. That's one of these. So yeah, that's great. I also, in addition to that, if you're not using your CC libraries, I highly recommend you start doing that. Like you get free cloud storage with Adobe. But the real kicker with it is this, that you can have assets that go from Illustrator to Photoshop to After Effects, and like so you can be designing in Illustrator and pulling them over and then like doing what each program kind of does best, and they're dynamically linked. So if you change it in After Effects, you don't have to like save it out and import it somewhere else. It's just like a dynamic link there. So I highly recommend that workflow. I use it every day. PureRef is a great reference tool. It's free or pay what you want, but so you pay $0. It's very simple, but it's basically just a window overlay where you can pull reference in and it will just stay on top of your screen if you want it to. You can save like, you know, palettes of imagery. You can like literally like just drag images right into it and it will just kind of create this, you know, this like little image viewer. And there's, you know, all kinds of hotkeys to like to sort them so like they perfectly lay out and whatnot. But this is a very commonly used tool for people who do 3D and are trying to match, you know, like the lighting or the materials or something. But it's also great if you're just looking at illustration reference or poster design reference and want to have that up. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, font base, similar to Eagle. This is basically just a tool for installing your fonts and turning them off again if you don't want them on anymore, so you don't have 6,000 fonts in your font dropdown. It's also free. There's a pro tier, which is nice, but you don't need it. It's great that you can turn stuff on and off because like Adobe tends to really like slow down as you add more and more assets into it. But what I most love is like similar to Eagle, I will just make a collection of like, these are my favorite serif fonts. These are my favorite sans serif fonts. These are my favorite script fonts. You just kind of drag them into these collections that you build. And then the next time you're looking for a good script or something like that, you don't have to like be like going down through the entire like font list of your fonts in Adobe. You can just be like, oh yeah, like these are like 12 that like always work for me. So again, the other super dope thing is it's synced to Google Fonts. So like any Google font, you can just turn it on from like within the app. So you don't have to like download the Google font or anything like that. You can just automatically toggle it. it's got all kinds of, you know, features for searching different characteristics like slabs and condensed and, you know, extended and all that stuff, but it's great. Figma, if you're not already using it, I highly recommend you use it to work collaboratively with your peeps, whether it's like on a project or something like that. Adobe just bought it for hella billions of dollars. Hopefully they don't screw it up, but yeah, it's like one of the coolest like multiplayer design apps I've ever used. It's like really changed the game in like style framing and storyboarding and just like getting, you know, like sign off in real time, working with people. So it's very simple. If you know how to use Illustrator, you can figure out Figma. So yeah. Next is Splice. This is a little bit more for music composition. It's just a sample library. Again, it's a subscription. But if you are interested in making music for your, you know, motion design pieces, it's definitely a good option. Arena is like a cooler version of like Pinterest and Behance and stuff. It's got, you know, it's free. I think there's a premium tier as well. But it's basically, think if like Pinterest was just like design and art school kids, you know, so it's like a little more like cutting edge, for better or for worse, sometimes pretentious, but like you can definitely find like inspiration on Arena that you would not find like on Instagram, or not easily find on Instagram or Pinterest or any of that stuff. So just a different place to pull inspo from that everybody else isn't pulling from. Noun Project. I've had a subscription to this for a while. It's just tons and tons of icons. It's really, they even have like an Illustrator plugin where you can, I think it might be, you need to pay the couple dollars a month or something, but you can immediately, like, you know, you just be like, I need a cost, you know, money icon. It's like, okay, here's all these icons. You don't have to attribute them if you pay for it, or you can attribute them and use them for free. Get the SVGs, you can just import them straight in. It's huge for just getting like simple vectors that are nicely made into your designs. Okay, and then a little bit more into sound design stuff. Soundly is kind of similar to Eagle, but just for sounds. It also, you know, has, there's a free tier, tons of sound effects. It's probably all you would need would be that free tier. And it's basically, you know, similar to like the 100 that I gave you. It's just pretty much everything you can imagine. If you need the sound effects, Soundly's gonna have it. Good interface, all that stuff. Boombox is a paid plugin for After Effects, but one-time purchase. I know you guys are students. Don't worry about buying any of this stuff yet if you're not making money off design. But if you do, budget for it, and you know, just like get it once, own it, and then like, you know, you'll be worth more. You can keep, you know, charging people for the use of this stuff, or you can, if you work for a firm or something, that they'll probably buy it for you, because with a lot of this stuff is like, okay, I could spend 10 hours like making these sounds myself. You know, if I'm working at $25 an hour, that's $250, or I can buy it, you know, have it for the rest of my life and never have to spend those hours again. So yeah. And then free sound is what it sounds like. It's a like community supported Creative Commons sound effect database. You know, the quality is a little shaky in some areas, but there's great stuff. Like, it's definitely like you can get everything you need for free from this website. It just might take a little more digging and like filtering, but yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so to move on to like software. After Effects. If you want to do motion design, you should learn After Effects. The design program is not meant to teach you these programs, and nor would it be like a good use of your time or the professor's time. There's like so much incredible instruction on the internet for these applications, and you can watch them at 2 times speed to get through them. I completely taught myself pretty much every application that I know just from YouTube, and like occasionally jumping in on like a Udemy or Skillshare sale where it's like a cheap course, but all this information is out there for free. And what I recommend doing if you go like the tutorial route to learn this stuff is to watch the tutorial and then try to do it, and not just follow them word for word and click the button when they click the button. Try to watch it and then do it from scratch without watching it. And like if it's a really long tutorial, maybe take it in 5 or 10 minute increments or something like that. But I find that you like really retain the knowledge a lot better if you're not just like, what value did you put in there? It's way better if you just watch it, kind of learn the principles, and then see if you can do it, and then you'll realize where you actually didn't understand. So yeah, I have down here like links to a bunch of different tutorials for like kind of the core After Effects concepts that I think you should learn. So very, very simple keyframing, like what that is and how you move something from one place to another or change a value from something to another. This is just a really quick overview of that. Expanding on that, the graph editor, which is basically the way it interpolates between those two things. Is it snapping between them? Is it just linearly moving between them? So this is a little bit more extensive. Great. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are like the ones that I'm a huge fan of. Like I highly recommend. Like I kind of threw everything out there. I use most of this stuff, but these guys are like what I recommend you definitely learn, especially if you're getting into motion or sound design or both. Save for Houdini. Houdini's just like my favorite program, but it's not for everybody. But yeah, I'll get to that a little bit more. So yeah, the graph editor. So the 2 After Effects instructors on YouTube that I really recommend are Ben Marriott and Jake Bartlett, I think his name is, Jake in Motion. Their channels alone can like teach you pretty much everything you need to know about this stuff. So I think the graph editor one is Jake. Anticipation is Ben Marriott. Pre-comps, this is just like a generic video about like what pre-comping is in After Effects. I'm not going to get too much into this stuff. Mats, also Ben Marriott, how matting works, which is basically like masking in Photoshop or something like that. And then exporting, which I think is from School of Motion, which is a great resource as well. They're like mostly paid courses. But yeah, I would recommend once you get into the motion design portion, like I'm sure you'll probably go over some of this stuff in your class. You could like double time this or just skip it completely, but these are like core principles to like get going in this stuff. And then these are all the studios that I referenced earlier. So I'm going to loop back up to software. So went through After Effects. Cavalry, it's rad. It's like kind of new on, like I've been long waiting for something to like dethrone After Effects because I'm not a huge fan of Adobe. It's kind of a necessary evil in our profession. It is what it is. Like they have a lot of really, really great products and like whatnot, but it's not good to have a monopoly on something. Like it's better that we have options. So Cavalry is a bit of a competitor. It's like a little bit different. It's more procedural, if you know what that means. So it's I guess like just a little more technical and a little bit more mathy. So if you like math and computer science or anything like that, Cavalry's would be an interesting one to check out. When it comes to 3D, I highly, highly recommend learning Blender. I started out in Cinema 4D. I feel the same way about Maxon, who owns Cinema 4D, that I feel about Adobe. They're basically a big software company that buys up a bunch of other things, has a really expensive subscription. It's gotten more and more expensive. They seem more focused on that than their actual product. That said, Cinema 4D is like an incredible program. It tends to be like the most common one for MoGraph people, for motion graphic people. So it's not a bad one to know. It's just expensive. Whereas Blender can do pretty much everything that Cinema 4D does. It's free. It will always be free. And because of that, it has like an incredible community of creators and tutorial makers and asset builders and stuff like that. A lot of these other 3D softwares like kind of lock you out because they're expensive, and rightfully so. Like they're complex programs that can do incredible work. But I don't know. It's been really cool to see. Like I'm like not super proficient in Blender, but anybody that's like interested in getting into 3D, whether it's like big or small, like you can do a lot with a little in these programs. But anybody who asks, I'm like, learn Blender because it's up and coming still, and it's just going to get bigger and like more robust. So Houdini is the program that I use the most. It's like kind of a different flavor of 3D. It's again more technical, more mathy. Because of that, it's like a sandbox. You can kind of do anything you want with it. It's heavily used in the visual effects industry. So simulating water and fire and smoke and all this stuff. The first studio that I showed you, the XK studio that was doing all the stuff with like the shoes and stuff, that's all Houdini. So it's incredibly powerful, but again, it's like math is not your cup of tea. Like, I wouldn't worry about it. Touch Designer, made by people who originally worked on Houdini, and it's like a live visual, so it's like it doesn't require rendering, so it's responsive, so it can create all its visuals in real time. So you can use it to project behind music or any number of things. It's because of that, it's like some limitations on like what you can do graphically, but it's incredible. But again, it's a little more technical, being that it's like a node-based program, so you're plugging nodes into each other. But highly recommend if you're into like visualization stuff. And then lastly, I'm not too familiar with this one, but I've been seeing it coming. It's called Spline. It's a web-based app. It's 3D. Can be used to create like 3D on websites and whatnot, like straight embedding it. And it seems like every week they're coming out with like new features that like gamified and like allow animations and interactions and stuff like that all in real time, which is dope. So yeah, I think there's something I wanted to say about this. Yeah, I guess that's the majority of it. I'm curious if anybody has any questions or like wants me to drill down onto anything in particular when it comes to this stuff. I know it's like drill. Yeah.
Like such a technical niche, specialization. How are you able to really like take that interest, especially if you're in Sacramento? Like, there's a lot of possibility and opportunity for that. But how exactly have you been able to, make a drop that capital grow, with this interest? I don't know. Maybe you had something.
Yeah. So I went from like I was freelancing a little bit while I was in the program, just like to kind of scrape by. Right out of the program, I started working for Yellow Brick Group. You guys might know Curtis. He's the homie, and that was cool in that it was like an opportunity to like we're very design focused, branding, identities, a lot of merch, a lot of packaging, a lot of print design, and I just kind of like, with like the blessing of the people that ran that company, like would inject motion and 3D and stuff into my projects, like probably in a way that like we weren't really billing for, but it was just like it kept me interested. It allowed me to like flex those muscles, and then like I'm kind of a firm believer is like sometimes you just got to like do the work and prove you can do it, and it will like attract the clients or the people that want to hire you to do that stuff. And so I moved to where I work now, which is called Fatham, and it's like a little bit more multidisciplinary. It's got like a big video production arm. We have a web development arm, and then I kind of live in the middle of that as like a designer and motion designer. And we're just like kind of always trying to sell a little bit more into like the 3D and motion world, and to like get the budgets to like allow for that, because a lot of times motion design is longer timelines, like more R&D. It can be harder to pull off. There's like a lot of moving parts. Like ideally we would have like a sound design team that I wouldn't have to do it myself or whatever, even though I love doing it. So it's a push and a pull to like really like I don't know, supercharge like my skill set. Of course I've always been doing tutorials and whatnot and like random courses. But I found like a Discord for like Houdini people that like was just based off of like a particular dude's like kind of wiki that he made for the program, and he kind of like, it's called CG Wiki, and like it's just all these concepts. But like I found all these people that like use this program and like nerd out on like doing this stuff, and like they're all like, most of them are not in the States, most of them are in Europe and like Asia and stuff like that. But we all just kind of like push each other. It was like, there's not a huge community of people that use this software here, but there is online, like you can find your people, and like I found that like doing that, just like people that like really love this stuff, like kind of love sharing it and love like sharing how they achieve things. Like it's pretty, like one of my favorite things about working with technology is like you often find people who just like want to give back because they learn freely from the internet. So it's about finding that community. And that kind of reminded me, like separate from your question, but like what I wanted to say is like all of these programs, like I recommend like just like dipping your toes into some of them if they sound interesting, because they can, I remember Pratt like talking about how oftentimes like the software we use, like or like mediums that we use really inform the results that we get, like, and they're going to lead us towards the results that we're most used to, that are most commonly sought after in those applications. So I like just like trying brand new like apps and betas and just like seeing like what results come out of it, even if it's just like for a one-time project. It like would probably lead me somewhere that like I wouldn't get to using other shit. So it can be fun just like to get into Blender and see like if you can render something out, and then like how you could incorporate that into a poster or something like that. Another like asset to throw out there is Sketchfab, which is like a great 3D asset place where you can get tons of models, or, varying from Creative Commons to paid, but like, there's tons of free models out there. So anyway, sorry, that diverted from your thing, but yeah, hopefully answered that. Yeah.
Any other questions, Scott? JC asks, how strong was the computer skills?
So yeah, I mean, you don't need something crazy, especially to learn this stuff. Like, I don't know, like After Effects will definitely start choking the harder you push it. Same with 3D rendering. So, me 7-8 years into doing this, like I finally like really splurged on a really nice computer with dual 3090s, like crazy, I think 64 cores. It's like a crazy machine, right? But the only reason I did that is because it is literally a like direct correlation to the amount of time it takes me to make this stuff. So I was working on laptops for a long time with this stuff. So it's I'm trying to think of the phrase, but it's just like, it's kind of one of those things, once you go big, it's hard to go back to using something that's not as powerful, but you don't need the most expensive thing to do this stuff. And like, it's honestly like a nice limitation to have. Like, it's nice to have a good computer once you know what you want to do, but it's good to have like limitations. I feel like with this technology and like the age that we're living in, like we have so many options, and there's just like, we get into this like analysis paralysis thing where it's just like, I can do anything, what should I do? So it's like the more constraints we have on our time and like abilities, like kind of better it informs us towards actually achieving and completing something versus just like getting bigger and bigger and bigger in scope. So I think like a MacBook Pro is great to learn this stuff. I work on PC because I like to be able to build my own computers. It's like you can get way more power for half the price at the cost of like PCs are a little finicky compared to Mac. Like they're not they're not as stable, and they're not like the closed garden that like, you know, they're having to support all these different hardwares and everything like that. So I guess why I bring that up is like, if you are really interested in building something to do this stuff, which eventually I think, you know, if you're doing motion design, you will want to do to save time and to make it like a more, you know, with the less friction between you and what you want to see on the screen, the better. But like, I would recommend building a PC if you know, you want to, if you're concerned about money, just because, you know, a $5,000 Mac is probably like $2,000 with the same power, but at the cost of stability. Like you might spend some time searching for drivers or crashing computers. So yeah, feel free to like reach out to me if like you are looking to build something. If I don't know like what to tell you to buy, like I can at least point you in the direction of people like a Discord that like their entire purpose is like they just love building computers for people. So that's it. I think the cabal of buildsmiths on Reddit, they have like a Reddit and then like a whole Discord where you just like say, I have this much money, I want to use these programs for these purposes, what should I buy? Building a computer. So for free. Yeah.
How are you doing your own sound design?
That's a good question. So I more and more I'm trying to do it myself just because it's interesting to me. It almost kind of feels similar to like what I was doing at Yellowbird Group, whereas it's like I'm just gonna use 3D and stuff just to like so I can flex it. Like now I'm kind of be like I'm just gonna do my own sound design just so I can flex it and like polish the skill. We don't like budget for that ever, or like we haven't yet. So there's that, and then I've just kind of had like a recurring music composition contract with Meta, which I guess is another part of my story. Is like as soon as I like made that decision, like, oh, I'm gonna go back to school and get a degree so I can actually make money with music, I actually got a contract making music and getting paid for it. But you know, I had no idea that was gonna happen. But so I'm like making a bunch of music every month for that, and like the whole purpose of that stuff is for like if it's not being used in like Oculus products, it's or Instagram, it's like available to people for people to use on their videos, like creators and stuff. So it kind of like kills two birds with one stone, where it's like I can use this for my own shit, and then I could just sell it to them as well, and like, you know, so I have that luxury in that, like, you know, most of the stuff I do like has some sound elements to it that are coming from me, and I use mostly Ableton these days. But if you have a Mac, and GarageBand is like really all you need. Doing sound editing in After Effects is kind of a nightmare. Like I do it a lot just to like time step, just because like I don't love switching between two programs to like try to time stuff together, but it is really not meant for audio editing. It's kind of a nightmare. But yeah, like so many of these things you don't need to buy stuff for. Like there's free products. GarageBand Reaper is another audio editor, or Adobe has Audition, I think it is, which is like I think very like commonly used for like podcasting and stuff, but it's a good audio editor. But yeah.
When you have design in your portfolio, how do you like incorporate it? Because we're going to be learning when we develop our portfolio and doing it. I'm assuming like your PDF form, obviously, doing it. But like, say if you're applying for a job, how would you incorporate your motion design to the application? Like, would you send it as like
I think I would probably first and foremost do it as like on my website, which I don't have. I don't have a website, but I did when I graduated when I was looking for work. You know, you can get away with just having like a reel on Vimeo or something like that. But I'd imagine you guys are going to be encouraged to make like a website. It probably doesn't have to be like completely bespoke. You could probably just do like Squarespace or whatever, you know, one of those prefab website makers. And like, I don't know, like, I think it goes a long way to like just have those embedded on there to showcase it, and people that are interested, you know, like you can speak to it in your application and then, you know, have that link to your website so people can see it. Yeah. Yes.
Another question in the chat, Valentina asks, where do you generally find inspiration for becoming a motion graphic artist?
That's a good question. I guess like I'm always like, you know, receptive of it via social media and whatnot. Like I feel like pretty much the only thing I really use social media these days is for like creative work, and even then, like I try not to look too closely at it because it gets a little samey. But yeah, there are specific studios like the ones I mentioned that like I'll always kind of, you know, check in with every now and then and see what they're doing. I at this point have a lot of friends that are in motion design, so like just kind of keeping tabs on where they're working and what they're doing. And then for like my own stuff, it's like I think because I come from the music world, like I often like I don't know, when I hear sound, like I want to like create stuff to it. So a lot of times it's like that is what is inspiring me to, at least to like when I'm experimenting on my own stuff. Yeah, that's kind of what the purpose of like the brief that I gave you was just like, how do you like hear something and like, you know, try to visualize it. It's just like to try to take inspiration from a completely different medium, because they're both temporal mediums, because they both happen over time. Like, I feel like you can get inspired from one and like, yeah. Cool.
We technically have no question in chat. She says it's worded poorly, and I'll just let you read it, see your own interpretation of it.
Yeah. Okay, how does it choose to reach out to codes? Yeah, that's so I think what our question is basically like, how does it differ if you're looking to freelance as a motion designer versus to be hired as like an in-house motion designer? In my experience, unless you're working for like a bona fide like motion design studio, which I don't know of any that are like strictly motion design studios in Sacramento. Like you're probably, if motion design is your thing, you're probably going to be a freelancer unless you're, you know, remotely working for like one of these studios in one of the big cities. That's not necessarily the case, but like I don't know a lot of design studios locally or, you know, agencies in general that just have like a bona fide motion designer unless they are courting a lot of that work. So what that means for me is like my job is not strictly motion design. Like I do design of all types. So I'm doing identity design, I'm doing web design, I'm doing you know, social campaigns, and yeah, and a lot of motion design as well, and like and 3D and whatnot, and then like kind of accenting, like if we have a video production, like how do I add some graphics or some like pizzazz to this? So if you are looking to work for a studio, like especially locally, you probably won't be just a motion designer, but that's the benefit of going through a program like this, is you can probably wear a couple different hats. And what was your name again? Javon. I was talking to Javon earlier. Like he's works for a multidisciplinary company. I do as well. Like I tend to prefer that because I don't want to get burnt out just designing magazines or something like that, or just designing someone's Instagram, you know, like social campaigns. Like I like a studio or an agency that has a bunch of different arms of design that, like, you know, I can kind of switch between different gears, different programs, and not get like too burnt out on anything. And like I really do feel like you can pull all of these different disciplines into one. Like you don't want to get like spread too thin where you don't like really learn how to do anything, but feels like in this day and age, like designers tend to need to wear a lot of different hats. to go from, static design to motion design to web design, responsive and all that stuff, and like to know how to like play between all these different platforms. So the other side of that, freelancing, I did it for a minute. Like we definitely, like if we have like a heavy motion design project, like we don't have any in-house motion designers that are just strictly motion designers. So we hire contractors every time that we get one of those projects. And, like they will just either moonlight, maybe they have a day job, maybe it's all they do and they're juggling a couple different jobs. But like that is like almost 100% word of mouth, like just like people who have worked with them before, or people who come from the design program, like have the chops, or that, just get recommended for some reason. And like, yeah, so if you want to be 100% motion designer, you might need to be a freelancer. For some people, that's awesome. Like it definitely like allows you the versatility to work when you want, to take jobs that you want and to avoid ones that you don't. But you also have to do all the other shit that comes with running a business, like corresponding with clients, billing, taxes, all that stuff, which for me, I shied away from eventually because I'm just like not great with the client side of things. I'm not like a difficult person, but like I don't do well getting feedback from people that don't know what they're talking about. So and like doing all that stuff. So like I needed to work at a firm where someone can like be the intermediary between me and like the corporate people that we're working with. Like sometimes we're working with really big corporations that have a bunch of people that have opinions for good reason, like they have a job that they're meant to do. That I, sometimes disagree with what they're saying. And like, I just don't want to be spending my days in meetings with those people, I'll actually be producing work. So freelancing means you're going to have to do a little bit more of that and like wear all those hats that are like come with being a one man or woman or show, but yeah, like as far as seeking out that work, I would just like try to look for those studios. A lot of, one of the benefits, if there are any, of COVID is that a lot of places have gotten way more receptive to working remotely and to working with people all over the world. So it's probably a better time than ever to like looking at studios outside of the area to do that kind of work. But other than that, yeah, like start making those connections with people. Reach out to me, reach out to other design studios in the area and let them know like, hey, like I'm a junior, like I want to get into motion design. Like, can you use me to like do some stuff and like start building those chops in. Is that all? Yeah. Cool. Sweet.
Thank you, Rob.
So yeah, that website's up there. All those assets are on there. What's that?
Last question.
Yeah.
What's the best way to reach
Oh yeah, so probably just Instagram. I have that in this PDF right here. Shoddy. SHODTY, my old Counter-Strike name.
Nah.
So yeah, just like send me a DM or something. I don't post a whole lot. I don't post a lot of my work these days, but yeah, I don't have notifications turned on, but I'll see it eventually. And yeah, from there we can email or text or whatever the hell. I can answer questions if you do choose to do the brief. Like, please show me the work and like let's work on it. Like it could be the start of something cool. So yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate you. Love you. Bye. Turn this back on. Let's turn this back on. We gotta settle this. Weird question, but what's the story behind
Oh
your
yeah,
IG handle?
yeah. Counter-Strike.
Shoddy.
I didn't know how to play to spell. I was young. So how to spell shotgun. So or shoddy, which is my weapon of choice in Counter-Strike. We're talking.
There you go, Valentina. All right, bye.